The fireworks for LSU recruiting continued past July 4th as the Tigers continued to bolster the middle of the defense in the 2025 class. Defensive tackle Brandon Brown out of Melbourne, Florida, announces his commitment today to LSU over a host of other schools, including technically a flip from the Texas Longhorns over to the purple and gold of LSU. My name is Bryce Koon. This is the Go 24/7 Instant Reaction podcast to the commitment of 2025 defensive lineman Brandon Brown. Welcome in. And today we talk a little bit about what Brown brings to the table. We're going to take a look at some of his film and just some final thoughts on this kind of week and what it means going forward as the defensive board is really starting to take shape and what I think could potentially continue to happen in the 2025 recruiting class. All right, let's take a look at who Brandon Brown is to kick things off. Brown is obviously a high-profile recruit out of the state of Florida. He's a 3-star per 24/7 Sports. I do expect a bump there for Brown. He is a 4-star in the composite ranking, a top 40 defensive lineman and a top 50 player in the state of Florida. But this is a guy who Bo Davis has, I don't want to say handpicked, but obviously the connection is strong. Brown was committed to Texas while Coach Davis was there in Austin, and then obviously continued dialogue, continued conversation has now made the flip to head to Baton Rouge. The Melbourne, Florida native, 6'1.5", 6'2", around 286, 290. That's a big body in the middle that can be a force. We talked a little bit about a couple of other guys that could enter, this commitment class, but I like what Brown brings to the table. Chose LSU over Texas, was originally committed to the Longhorns over Tennessee, USC, and Oklahoma. Took some OVs this past summer to Oklahoma, USC, Texas, and Tennessee, but LSU got that first visit, and I think that they made quite the impression of what they needed to in order to sway his decision. And really the conversations, how much did they really have to sway it? I mean, this is a guy who is very, very tight with Bo Davis. I love what he brings to the table in terms of this is one of the guys that he wanted in Austin. He's not only do you steal a recruit from now an SEC rival, but you also, this ongoing battle between LSU and Texas for recruits, LSU gets to put one in the win column. Still a long ways to go. Signing day, even then, we know that college football recruiting has completely changed the game. But let's take a look at some of Brown's stats and the way that he is just can kind of continue to flourish as his career has gone along. So let's head back, obviously 2023, or 2022 when he kind of burst on the scene as a recruit. He had 36 tackles, 6 for a loss, 2 sacks, 3 pass breakups, a forced fumble, and he also recovered a fumble as well. This past year, now this is why I think that once you look at the tape, which we're going to take a look at here in a second, and as he continues to grow in his senior year, we're going to see a potential rankings bump up to a 4-star. 65 tackles, 24 tackles for loss out of the middle of the defense, and 4 sacks down there in Melbourne, Florida. So, look, this is a guy that is very talented. He's very violent. He has great hands. And he is just a guy that you can lean on both literally and, physically. You're just gonna be able to lean on and can provide you some quality snaps right now at his career. Now, how does that conjecture? How does that transition to what LSU needs out of him in his freshman year? We'll see. Hopefully you're not having to put so much pressure on freshmen to contribute right away immediately. The portal and, just development of other guys currently on LSU's roster should be able to help with that. But I love what the Brandon Brown brings to the table. Try saying that 5 times fast. Well, let's take a look, though, here at the film at what he's able to do. And you're going to see some of the things that I'm talking about because I really, really like what he brings to the table just in terms of length, in terms of physicality, and then just overall violence when he's playing the position. So you get a look at Brandon Brown, what he's doing right here in the middle of this defense and just fighting off multiple would-be blockers. I'm calling them would-be because they were not successful in stopping Brown. But he just does a really, really good job and just getting after the quarterback. And we talked a little bit about being a pass rusher from the inside. And I've said this multiple times. We talked about this with Zion Williams just a couple days ago. The ability to rush the passer from different ways and from different spots is what makes defenses elite. And so if Brown can provide some of that from the interior, along with a Zion Williamson and along with, some edge rushers that you have on the roster and potential guys that are going to enter the class as well, that's huge. Like it's absolutely massive in terms of what you need so that an opposing, offensive coordinator, opposing quarterback, offensive line, they can't just check in on one dude. Like they can't just say, "Hey, we got to know number 4 is on the field at all times," like they might be able to do this year. That's a massive storyline for LSU in 2024. Does the emergence of someone else? So if you can start to stack guys along your front seven that are going to be able to get after the quarterback, like you see Brown can do, and have really good pursuit skills out of the interior of the defensive line, that's really really big as well. And I talked about this a little bit last week or 2 weeks ago with LeJesse Harold. The ability of LSU to turn guys back into the middle of the defense. You want a guy like Brandon Brown in the middle of the defense, in the teeth of the defense, being the guy that can just kind of swallow these running backs up, or you funnel the quarterback back into the pocket if he tries to roll out, which a lot of quarterbacks like to do nowadays. And then you can make a tackle, you can make a sack. So I really like the addition of Brandon Brown in this class. I think that he brings some much needed juice to the interior, and this is all part of it. Like, you can look at the recruiting ranking and maybe you're a little bit frustrated by it, but bottom line, defensive linemen are premium. And the fact that, you're able to get a guy who, Bo Davis is familiar with, I think that bodes well for LSU fans. I think that, the familiarity aspect of what Bo Davis watching his game for several years, he wanted him in Austin and now he gets him in Baton Rouge. That is huge for what you want to bring to the table. Now, let's kind of get into the fact of defensive line in general. You're watching this and you kind of realize very few high school seniors are ready to contribute at this level in the interior of the defensive line, much less anywhere on the field. This is a really hard position. Defensive line and offensive line, those are two where you got some growing up to do before you can really, really be a factor in the SEC and especially on LSU's roster. So is he going to be ready day one? No, I think there's some raw things that they're going to want to clean up with him. But that's kind of where you brought in Bo Davis for. Bo Davis has, for a lot of people, not been heralded as an elite recruiter, but a guy that can really, really develop and take this 3-star, take a guy like Brandon Brown, who right now, currently here in July, is a fringe 3 or 4-star, and elevate him into a day 2 draft pick. He did it at Texas. He's done it at other stops. Can he do it here at LSU? Here is a prime example of some clay that you can mold into kind of that, dynamic interior defensive lineman. So I really like what Brandon Brown brings to the table. You're continuing to watch this film, and just the way he explodes off the line of scrimmage, is able to get in the backfield. And he's not one of those guys that I think is going to be, a big slow guy. I mean, I think he's got some explosiveness to him that is going to be able to bode well for playing multiple different spots, not just over the, playing a nose guard position, but he can play potentially a 3 technique as well and do some different things, being interchangeable. That's something I think Bo Davis really wants to see as well along this defensive line. So I like the pickup. I like what they were able to do with Brandon Brown. And let's kind of get right here into some of the final thoughts of what Brown and really this defensive class looks like in general. You're starting to see this board take shape and this class take shape. Now, what is next? Obviously, you got to look at the back end and the secondary. That's going to be something that you have to be able to see. You got to be able to feel comfortable with. There's a lot of names out there. We won't get into specifics of them. If you want more information on that, it's a good reason for you to head down to the link in below. Go 24/7, everything you need there on the LSU Tigers. But you're going to have to help out the back end. You feel like you're set at linebackers, edge positions, still there as well. But getting Brandon Brown, getting Zion Williams, I think is going to allow a lot of people to kind of breathe a big sigh of relief as they head into the senior season. And you get the foundation, the core players you want. And now if there's a guy that pops off, on the interior of the edge or the linebacker position, anywhere on the defense, that's when you start to, heighten up your recruiting efforts for some of those late bloomers in the season as well. So Brandon Brown is now an LSU Tiger. Almost. We got to wait till signing day, see how those things fold out. But I like this recruiting win for the Tigers. And for more information on all things LSU, head over to our Go 24/7 page, the All Things LSU, over on the 24/7 Sports Network. And once again, my name is Bryce Koon. We've got a great staff, myself, Glenn West, and Sonny Ship, with some of the latest breaking news on your LSU Tigers and more stuff like this. We're going to continue to talk over on the YouTube channel. So give us a subscribe, hit that subscribe button, click notifications so you know when we go live, when we post new content as well. But thanks so much for tuning in. Brandon Brown commits to LSU and flips for the Texas Longhorns. That's always some good news post July 4th for LSU fans.